So without further ado, I'm happy to welcome you all to learnings from starting a rapid research function at Figma, presented by Christa Simon.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And hello, everyone. I am Christa, a UX researcher at Figma, and I am so thrilled to be here virtually with all of you and to discuss the most challenging, but also most rewarding part of my research career so far. But before we even get started, I'd love to first acknowledge my amazing teammates who helped inspire this talk and this team. Kristen Torrey, Michael Wynn, Ian Hall, Darren Lee, and the rest of the Figma Research Org. Thank you for always encouraging me to think outside the box and for your flexibility as I've been navigating this new territory. I also really want to add that I'll be sharing a lot of work today, but this didn't just come from me. It's been a collective effort from this entire wonderful team. All right, so for today, I'm hoping by the end of this talk, you'll have a better understanding of why rapid research can catapult your product org's intuition and decision-making faster, learn what foundations to implement rapid research processes for your own team earlier, and learn how to think beyond a reactive research approach. But to get started, I thought it would be helpful to take a step back and to think through how I even got to this point today. It's not just me being in a club with Drake, but around why I got to building this amazing rapid research function at Figma. So I often get asked, how did you get into tech or how did you get into UX research? And I used to be really shy around how I got here and explaining that because it felt unplanned and even really lucky through parts of it. But recently I went to a fireside chat with one of Figma's board members who said, be proud of your whole journey. And you know what? I really am. And when I actually started to map out my journey, I realized how so many events, for good or for bad, that had happened, all built me towards where I am today. So let's take a little quick look down memory lane. All right, so I primarily went to college, full disclosure, just to play softball. School was always secondary for me. But then I started taking some neuroscience classes and became obsessed with how our brain and our behaviors are so interconnected. This is where the start of my research adventure really began. I then worked at a lab at UC Davis studying Alzheimer's. This was the first time I got to conduct real research with patients and quickly learned what empathy building was by talking to patients and their caregivers directly. Then I thought, well, this should be a good idea to really follow this path further and spend my entire 20s in Eastern Washington at a PhD program at WSU, but quickly realized all I wanted to do was collaborate on research with the computer science students in my program. So I ended up dropping out. And while I was contemplating all of my life decisions at this point, one of those computer science students reached out to me and said, have you ever looked into UX research? You might actually really like that. And from there, I joined Asana's research team in 2015 as a participant recruiter. I figured this was a good way to get my foot in the door, and I needed to learn to jump before I could actually start jump roping. And within my first 6 months or so, I had realized as a new user myself that there wasn't any researcher or team focused on that new user experience. So I set up weekly rolling research sessions to A, just quite literally learn on the job, and B, to hopefully learn some nuggets along the way to surface to different product teams. I then became a researcher and pretty much focused my research all on product adoption and learned the importance of good usability and really bad paper cuts. And in March of 2020, what a time, I joined Figma and hit the ground running, building up the foundations of a research team with all of our product org. I've been lucky enough to be part of 2 now founding research teams, fueling my interest for starting something of my own from scratch. And here we are today. I'm excited to talk to you all about my newest adventure of starting the rapid research function at Figma. So let's just dive right in. All right, so typically with research, as you all pretty much know, you have different types of questions you're looking to answer to help unblock different teams. And at Figma, the research team uses this 2x2 to map out their product team's questions and work streams for that quarter. And you can see that in the bottom right quadrant C is where all those big, meaty research questions live, like what's our next big bet to improve adoption? Or just to the left in quadrant D, you'll have questions like, Which user flow provides more clarity of higher success rate to accomplish X? And whether it's one of those big bet strategy initiative type questions or a decision between two design directions, both types of questions are important to answer. But one just ultimately takes a lot more effort and takes longer than the other. So as product teams move really fast, it's hard to stay ahead of both, right? And after a few product planning cycles, we realized that we were stretched pretty thin and needed more dedicated headspace towards those bigger projects that were high risk and where the opportunity was still very ambiguous. Our goal was then to think through, okay, how might we increase the strategist focus? We needed to accelerate confident iteration to unlock our embedded researchers to be those strategic partners and deliver more long-term thinking and decisions for our company. And much like in product development, after identifying our problem, we had a few questions naturally. Should we make this a democratized or DIY initiative? Should we throw money at the problem and hire more contractors? Should we create a dedicated team for this work? Which then led to an even bigger question, who would even want this job? And I think we all know where we landed because I'm literally standing right here. But why did we lean into having a dedicated team? So first, why not a DIY approach? Well, all product folks at Figma, and I know many other companies too, are slammed. And so this really solves the researcher problem, but doesn't solve the stakeholders' needs. And building a DIY program also takes a lot of training and a lot of resources to really scaffold and set in place that we just didn't have. And as a dedicated team grows, we will also plan to scale our product org stakeholders into more of this DIY training in the future. And so why not hire contractors? Well, this only solves a problem in the short term. We were still growing and building out features very quickly and still are, and we're not stopping. And so we wanted to catch up and then maintain as well. And then my favorite question, who would want this job? And you'd be amazed of how many people literally ask that. But remember, as I walked you through my journey, all things really led to the joy that I get of getting stuff done and connecting with as many customers as possible. To me, there's just like nothing better than seeing product teams connect directly with customers and immediately unblock their design needs or their decisions through those insights. And then seeing it built and shipped quite literally immediately is wonderful. And so as I started to commit to this work and building out this team, I, of course, did more research as to what other companies might have teams out there like this and started to connect with those teams. I gained a lot of confidence through this process that there are so many other folks like me that find a lot of joy in this type of work. And then once we launched our second hire job opening, it was really exciting to hear and see from so many researchers who were thrilled about this opportunity. So when you're thinking about starting a dedicated rapid research team, do a little bit of homework. Also, do some research road mapping. Begin with mapping out your research roadmaps each quarter in order to determine any pitfalls that you all might have. This will help you decide where and how to focus your attention on which one of those kind of 3 different approaches would work best for you and your team. And then after nailing down your solution, go on a roadshow. I went and pitched and talked to our product all hands, our design all hands, and really just started sharing this idea and sharing this concept of how they can get started with our team. This also gave me the opportunity to get feedback from them and uncover any blind spots I might have had. A lot of times too, they've had, at different companies, relationships with a rapid research function. So it was great to get their feedback as well. All right, so we've identified what our core problems were and what the solution was, and we got buy-in, which was like, woo! But now is actually time to implement and like literally build out and launch the program. So how did we do it? So as a small but mighty research ops team of 4, we set out to first figure out how we all map our work together. We workshopped and we workshopped and we workshopped and came up with our mission that we accelerate how Figmates learn and understand what users need so they can build products customers love. We then added in all of our own pillar missions. So we have the rapid research team, which helps Figmates get rapid feedback on their ideas so they can iterate with confidence. Then we have our voice of customer program, which helps scale how insights are managed and integrated into how Figma actually builds our products. And then we have our operations, which is the foundation of all of our work, which helps build and manage the infrastructure so that research, not just with our org, can have the greatest impact. And so while this helps communicate our team's structure, it fell a little bit short explaining how we were all going to execute. And it resulted in a siloed program and hindered our ability to prioritize key leverage points for improvement. We wanted to do all of the things. And so to address these issues, we actually developed an insights flywheel. So this insights flywheel is a framework that allows us to effectively utilize the research insights we gather, maximize their impact, and drive business success. This flywheel framework also allows our research ops team to better target the areas we should focus on quarterly and even thinking yearly. But you might be looking at this and being like, cool, Christa, so you made a rapid research process loop. It's just like a research loop. Cool. Well, yes, and alongside the loop, we've actually identified those key leverage points for improvement. So let's dive in. So for the first stop on our loop, we have research questions. Improving this step would result in framing more interesting research questions with our teams. But how? Well, initiatives in this area might look like templates for research plans, succinct scripts for subject matter expert combos, all projects that would create more alignment on expectations and better anticipating needs of our stakeholders. And for our second step on our loop, we have conducting the research. For this step, I'll highlight just a couple key opportunities as the recruiting and analyzing phases in this process. So improving the participant management process would result in faster and easier ways to access our audiences that we can actually learn from. And so initiatives here might look like an opted-in participant pool. Shout out to Great Question for making this a lot easier. And or investing in a rolling cadence of calls with an untapped customer target. And then for our insights management, the opportunity here is easier access to our latest customer and research insights, right? We don't want to have to always create new research when it might already exist. So initiatives here might look like creating more venues for customer feedback, like a voice of customer program or a quarterly roll-up of research reports. And so our last step on our train or loop, we have analyze and socialize. It is critical that we thought about socializing our insights in order to inform decision-making rather than just for learning as our core opportunity. Initiatives here are all about improving the quality of insights in order to drive that decision-making. Simply creating an end of project feedback survey can help you know what type of impact the work had with stakeholders, even with a longer lag of a project, right? And how it directly influenced the change in the project. So as you can see, you can brainstorm a lot of different solutions, which obviously we did for each of these categories. But then it's just so important to think, okay, which 2 areas can we focus on in the quarter that will drive business impact the most? You quite literally cannot do it all because it'll be stretched too thin again, right? So this helps us keep our focus and actually make bigger swings along the way, which is really exciting as an ops team. And specifically for our rapid research team, it provided us with a foundation in order to make better trade-offs down the road. We are now able to prioritize more efficiently within our processes to not only help our own rapid research process and team, but the greater research team as well. So we got the foundation set, but how does rapid research actually work in practice at Figma, right? So for rapid research, we operate under 2 types of engagement. We have Fig Forward and execution. So Fig Forward, really trying to make this name stick, so here we go, is all about uncovering what we might not even know about by connecting with diverse audiences or digging even deeper into existing customer reports. This is pre any discovery work that an embedded researcher might be working on. So we're not going really, really deep into, big questions. We're kind of just starting to scratch the surface to give the embedded researcher a point to start at. And then the execution-based rapid research is probably the most common type of rapid research, or something that you might be most familiar with when you hear rapid research. And it's all about validating or invalidating solution directions. So let's dive in a little bit more into how we utilize them each at Figma. All right, so Fig Forward research is where we ultimately connect Figmates with the customers, even though there might not be a direct initiative on the roadmap. Our goal here is literally just to provide more clarity with a variety of target audiences to really double click on. An example would be like our existing customer reports, like the VOC rankings, right? And so some methodologies we utilize here are rolling research. So you can think about this as like for every month, every Thursday, we might set a cadence for when we're going to talk to a specific audience. And we set up sessions where anyone in the company can join. And then the following day, we might have like a big round table where we discuss what we learned and then decide where we want to narrow in for the next week. And so we'll do that set for like a month and then switch up for the next month. The other way is just to literally scrub our existing data. We have a lot of data out there, and a lot of times product teams will start with a roadmap, but need a little more clarity of like, wait, what is that problem area? What are some of those use cases that we see? And so we can help pull together more desk research, previous research findings, scrub our interpret database, etc. And deliverables and outcomes you might see at this type of research include decision making, so helping teams decide between alternative paths. This could be a refinement of what specific target audience might be worth digging into more deeply, right? And then priorities, so an ordered ranked list of priorities to like literally go after. All right, execution. So this is the type of research we started with quite naturally, and which follows more of a like typical service blueprint approach. Being able to intervene at the right moment in the service process and provide concrete answers for our teams. Approaches here ladder back to that 2x2 I started with, focusing on careful iterative design and testing. So think concept and usability testing, as well as rolling up our sleeves and getting as scrappy as we can. Think, last minute copy testing to build up our team's confidence. And so some outcomes you might see for this type of research include go-dos, so a synthesis of things that you should just like literally go and fix, right? These are like more immediate decisions right before we launch something, as well as more decisions and priorities that we set. So when I first set out planning for that execution work, I thought we could work in a one-week sprint. I think we got this. Like on Mondays, I take a look at our Asana rapid research request that comes in and prioritize and run a few intake meetings. Then we'd go and plan for the actual research, work with our participant management and data on pulling the actual user list. On Tuesdays, I'd focus on the guide, prep all my materials and GQ, and then launch the outreach. And on Wednesdays, we wear pink, or on Wednesdays, we have no meeting Wednesday. So why not just fill that with a bunch of sessions, right? Then on Thursday, we synthesize and then turn it right around on Friday. Yeah, it's really cool in theory, especially when your team name literally starts with rapid, but that's just not realistic, especially for where our team is at. And especially the teams of others, where it's not just our own dependencies, right? We're dependent on designs to come through and be ready to test. And so what we've learned is we're still rapid, but it looks a little bit more like this. This wasn't an overnight mind shift, though, because we frequently retro our processes that, hey, this is addressed and we discussed, and we constantly are looking to iterate on and improve on our balance here. It's really tough to do. And we also additionally launched a post-research feedback survey to help track our goals on whether or not the research timing actually met our stakeholders' expectations. So remember to build a foundation that helps you prioritize and communicate how you'll actually execute on the work. Identify opportunities that align with your business goals and will also allow for your ops team to have those bigger swings, those bigger bets. And then avoid those self-imposed expectations. Instead, track your execution in other ways. It's been so wonderful to have that survey and be like, oh yeah, we are meeting expectations and we're meeting timing, even though it's not within a week, right? So before we recap everything, I just wanted to share some personal ahas I've learned from my experience starting this team. Iterate always. Your work is literally iterative, and so you should be too. Don't go too far without taking a step and checking in. Get feedback on your work and your processes, especially, and be willing to iterate, learn, and move forward. Celebrate. This work can feel very tiring and is a prime for actual work burnout. It's critical to take breaks in your sprints and celebrate those wins. Our team has literally the most amazing Monday morning meeting, which feels weird to say, but it's amazing. And we all look forward to it because we reflect, we give kudos from the previous week, we share wins, and it just really helps us all reset, appreciate, and prep for the week ahead. This is an area I'm still really trying to find balance in, especially with sharing and celebrating our actual research findings in a manageable and productive way, because it's so critical for our team and for the company. And then self-imposed expectations. I literally have a Post-it on my screen here that says this to remind myself, because personally, I've been in this mindset of just like climb. And I've realized that those unrealistic expectations I set aren't fruitful for myself and especially not my team. And since setting solid key results around our objectives, it's been really eye-opening to see how we can mitigate the feeling of being rapid for the sake of just being rapid, right? And so I really hope you were able to pull a few helpful nuggets from this talk, but just some key things to remember is that rapid research can really help catapult your intuition and decision-making by allowing embedded researchers to go off and increase their strategist focus, ultimately making better decisions for all of your company outcomes. Build the right foundations in order to directly pinpoint to focus your attention. It will be crazy overwhelming if you don't do this. Trust me. And then think beyond just a reactive, approach and build for be the leader in pinpointing strategic bets for your teams to dive more into in the next quarter or next half of the year. So that's all for me today. I'd love to stay connected and keep the conversation going. You can find me on Twitter at Christa_UXR. I'm also going to be sharing these slides in our figma.com/community. So you'll have access to all those there. Thank you all so much. It's been a pleasure. I'm a big fan of great questions. So excited to have been able to give them this opportunity to talk with you all.